let them know. Islam, let them know. Let them know. Moorish MC order, I'm a round table sheik. 7 days in a circle and 52 weeks. Dirty Moors copycat and bite the prophet's speech. I'm L without taking a Hajj like Malik. In a group of solo like Raphael Sadiq. Walking over rappers like stepping over a creek. Exposing you dappers, dressing like Greeks. Showing off cheeks, thong wearing whale freaks. Suck like a leech, I'm the nerd you kick sand on at the beach. Verbally your face I stand on, back to teach. Learn a lesson as the piano soothes your mood. Lyrical weed, beat brain food, you turn God. Applying what I speak, the truth, they burn and lie through their teeth. Denationalize, jack for all your supplies and knowledge from the high priest on the mental highs. Bringing you light, giving you sight, close your eyes to pray. Get shackled at night, now they giving you tripe. Tales of ox, feed of pigs and soup. You've been bamboozled, tricked, had and duped. Won't fight your own fight, but you join their troops. Killing others around the world just to stay out the news. Won't fight your own fight, but you join their troops. Killing others around the world just to stay out the noose. Let them know. Use the mic to let them know. Let them know. What up, brother Hanif? Use the mic to let them know. This is like Jurassic. They got your birthright. Knowledge is light. They calling you black and you're calling them white. Your name's Mikael and they calling you Mike. Earth shadow is the darkness, they calling it night. Sodom and Gomorrites are called gays and dykes. False education appears real, they calling it fright. Chic on this beat, you're calling it tight. Effects from the roach blunt, calling it heights. With a razor blade on my line, I'm cutting your kites. Rapping blood clot dummies, worry about scuffing the nights. Feminized in tight shirts, showing muscles and ice. Deals, got 'em acting like the 3 blind mice. Rhyming for nursery, laying play for Andrew Dice. I'm pro, you're Joe, the beat is spike. Can't take my flow, you hope I ease it right. I keep it coming like food and aki, peas and rice. No coleslaw, or tonic roots please, no Sprite. 5 cents for a bag, yo I don't need it alright. 65, 35 fam, no need to fight. Studio time paid with knowledge, time to leave the mic. Let them know. Use the mic to let them know. Let them know. Use the mic to let them know. The truth about nationality and birthright.
Yo,
let them
agenda
know.
to the T dot massive. Ready for the Gideon Babylon with my shit. We give them what they want, so them want come stash it. We're ready for tech back with things and lash it. Unified is the camp, nationality your stamp. When we dealing with the land, we talk attaching this man. So who the white man? Who the black man? When the law was written by the brown hand. Inspiration from a universal realm, to distort the realness and take the film. Keeping world under lock and key. Yo, cameras everywhere watching me. Check it, claim of right to be who I am. Public notice from seas to the land. Who's ready to stand? I am in propria persona. To hell with the fiat and the fake money launderers. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. It's time for the people to wake to injustices. Under contract, mind for combat. Natural law, enemies got to fall back. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. It's time for the people to wake to injustices. Under contract, mind for combat. Natural law, enemies got to fall
let
back.
Them know. Use the mic to let them know. Let them know. Use the mic to let them know. The truth about nationality and birth. So it's gonna get you in. What? I'm rocking. Who says we ain't in the building? Who says we ain't into building? We the Moorish master masons, architects for your children, repping Friday 13th like Jason, without the killing. But we promote life, oh, it's all about the feeling. And we invoke light, yo, we them light beings. Though you might see him on the block getting his posture, might be talking to cops, giving them caution, occasionally wearing his fez when he's walking. See the turning heads, whispering gawking, but he's locked in and he's zoned out while we boxed in our own house. Study the mystics, the adepts, the magi, wisdom of the ancients can uncalcify us. Possible mission, free mental numbness, extract the substance with minds of dumbness. Use the source, don't care what some purport, as we know by being told man knows not. Many before the fall, souls got bought, placed in the devil's hands, ruling the seven lands. To dogma rituals, Negro spirituals, brainwash subliminal, keeps thinking to a minimal. They're still criminal, in a world digital so pitiful. Mental survival so critical, it's visible. Can you see past righteous wrongs? Hashtag zombies with waves of cyber funds. No need for cell phones, they speak through soft arms. It's nothing for alarm, chips and forearms.
Wind, brass, and bass, such a beautiful serenade. Women feeding me grapes, I'm feeding the Henry serenades. Whether the sky's clear or gray, rain when you hear it fake, giving life to see. Speaking through who not here today. Show you the future in a glimpse. And I was looked to these holes like hallucinatory depths. Sun walked the desert, been more of a since I found God. Look back, used to see his prince. Forget being a prince, I'm a G. OD grown man, no Jody, deny it, you don't know me. Don't make me tap into the old me. That's like a couple hundred years. Walk around town with a couple hundred peers and release the peace of up fears. The sun gon' shine, so what tears? This young brother here just trying to get his third eye clear.
This deep, wars don't sleep. Invest in your mind, body, and unleash. Real life rap, spitting over tracks. Conscious thinking and living a dead attack. This deep, wars don't sleep. Invest in your mind, body, and unleash. Real life rap, spitting over tracks. Conscious thinking and living a dead attack.
So as the moon sets, the sun takes its place and spoons on blocks, inspired spots, filled spaces. Real rats, who got cases. Fire stain the corridors of flemo faces. Game changers, rule benders, and no pretenders. Style benders, channel my vibe through the vibrant optic lenses. Send a message to our veterans. Soldiers up and get it in. We on the birds, we on merge subliminal beings. Third eye seeing, still I participate unwilling.
They wanna break me, shake, bake, grade me. Running with my name G, double O-M-G. S-O-N is crazy for a minute that you think you could take me for a fool like a native to his land, being schooled by a foreign dude. You mistaken me, spiders on the roof, in the dark rooms. I've been saying you mistaken me. You better move or I mark it. Power pin is my tongue, your existence to target. Revealing all lies and deceit on the market. Genocide carried out in pockets, I knock it down, bulldozer. Baby to Goliath, it's an exposure. Some big heads ruling and it's getting closer to your downfall. Round up all your soldiers.
Little homie, I was seeking a fortune, tired of misfortune. I just wanted a portion, everything that I never had, though I needed my portion. Blowing like porcelain, haters straddling porcelain. Getting broke, tired of being broke. How we acquire hope is the DJ still as dope, just to keep us afloat. Mind as deep as the boat, brain is the lethal weapon. We one need to below. When I speak, I provoke. Walk in the room with my aura feeling like heavy smoke. Feel like when they let me broke under my Louis Vuitton, the semi-coat. Cause then we capture the kill the boy, yeah, the joke. The cost of living, higher profits and private printing. These little girls are sunny bodies just to pay tuition. These little niggas sunny niggas just to build condition. It's like this thing they never end the prison in the fiction. I wanna free the world, but I'm one man. A couple ones like me and me one plan. I wanna free the world, but I'm one man. A couple ones like me and one plan. Yeah. I ain't no joke. Rapid Inquisition. Iron Sheep. I ain't no joke. Rapid Inquisition. Rappers getting hip hop and MC titles, smell like scalp burning and skin bleach like Vibes Cartel. Matter of fact, get your skull cracked. Got me a skull cap for every time I play a CD and hear a dog track. Reach rapper studios like the Hall. Use rapper CDs as coasters, they're void and dull. Throw a CD DJ in the boiling vinyl vat. Don't blame me, thank DJ Grandmaster Supreme for that. Put S in front words off rappers' heads. Stick them on mic stands, hex rappers dead. Flowing like ice cubes with pants below your butt cheeks, tats on your face like a rapping geek, acting Greek and freaky deaky on BET. Torture makes you can't scream, just dribble like CP3. If you got locks, I shave you ball like CB4. Treat Nicki Minaj rappers like my sister's Barbie dolls. Ask her what I did to them, I won't tell you. Thanking Jesus for awards, the hell I send you. Even the devil thinks you're whack, so he'll send you back for more torture. 50-pound claw in your back, hang you from the ceilings for all the whack rhyme you're wielding. Sticky finger torture chambers got them screaming. Cannabis torture chambers make them listen to hip hop before 95. This rapping Inquisition.
I ain't no joke. I ain't no joke. I ain't no joke.
Like Rock'em, Eric B and BDI, you won't even recognize when you see these guys. After the Inquisition retire with no comebacks, rapping Barbies need to swallow, stop spitting dumb tracks. Record label execs get special treatment, like Han Solo buried alive in wet semen. A&Rs get infected with AIDS and SARS. Parents of rapping R&B children get caged in bars. Reality TV homo judging stars get sent to death row and must pick up soap bars. Rapper torturer, Inquisition tunes, make them break dance to save their life in mustard gas miss rooms. I spit doom, it's rappers' time to end, and want none when she transfer the mic to pens. Rappers look to Muppets to create stage names, biting in the new style to get a gold chain, get a label deal and climb Billboard charts. A lot of rappers should just call their albums fart. It stinks, bad man that dress like girls, no need to wear tight pants or shirts in pink. Rapper Inquisition make them fall like rain. The Inquisition hurting rappers more than Spain. The Inquisition make them fall like rain. The Inquisition hurting rappers more than Spain. I ain't no joke.
I ain't no joke. I ain't no joke. I ain't no joke.
Chill. I thought I told y'all I'm coming right back like I never left. I'm blessed and ready to attack this. Here again, the rapper Inquisition. Spit rhymes to uplift minds is the mission. Yo, the jewel never lost. MCs are the boss. Rappers pun mainstream ain't solid day sauce. And I'm talking about your 1-2 rhymers. Spitting 2 liners, think you hot cause you wanna fly beat liars. Telling you nice cause you rockin' all ice, but your wardrobe sucks. Why your pants too tight? And I ain't no joke like a stand-up comic. I blast off fakers, lava, comment. Come rock it on your iTunes, we give it to you fine-tune. Put your pie notice, yo, scratch that. I rule, we all major, not a minority with food well flavor. So stop with your cloning, EUROPEAN. I'm sick of y'all puppets trying to kill melanin. Yo, my son is my light. Every day I gotta strive. I lay your body down just to keep him alive. Keep it real, cause the youth still coming up. Funny people get the roughing up, yo. Fam get the loving up. We lay law down, showing all you rappers we ain't playing around. I told y'all, I ain't no joke.
I ain't no joke. I ain't no joke. I ain't no game, and I ain't playing. If y'all people know what I'm saying, it's the Inquisitor, visitor from inner earth. Get to deliver and get worse to these little words. This ain't heard, this is feeling music. So if you ain't feel, then you ain't in tune. Then higher intelligence, rhyme and speak freely. But crap in the bucket, rappers really can't see me. No, roll solo against hell's angels, out of range with Jesus, but I still bang true. And yeah, this ground's ruthless. Swing 2 fists, pow pow, like fire spitting rhymes cayenne. So check the reason for the way I am, express who I am. Scully, but the sacrifice will lead to triumph. Sentence giant, comply with the law of rhyming, like an apprentice under the mentorship of my advisement. Don't advise me, silence if you know what I mean. Come like a mic fiend, flowing at the speed of light beams. Spitting tight weeds, spiral lyric intertwining. Peacefully violent, steady, cause I'm equally biased. No contradiction, compliments constitute existence. Sequentially, I flow between the difference. Spin words to existence, work and bear witness. Get your knowledge up, but stop and be witness. Coming with true lyrical fitness. This is my business, real MC shiznit. Yeah. I ain't no joke.
I ain't no joke. Really real. Rappers Inquisition helps identify shit with her. My emphasis mostly exists in forming healthy food words. So certain many rappers lie. Some wonder why. Was curious, now just know the difference from me and mine, us and ours. Heard many express their verbal power, yet lack it at that moment in time, the vital hour. See many cower, understand with less than stable hands. Vows for mercy, loud to leave them, ball F all of them. Like they're not remembering, just excessively humbling. Watch it change it some that talk the talk as soon as they're locked in. Talking about financially secure, yet their network is not worth discussion. In other terms, they bluffing, huffing, puffing like that wolf. They're truly coyotes. They all what they eating. The pigs deceased on international. We happen to be those that listen. File will make me missing in between the fine lines. And more trust the words of my calm than any document read or potential he said. It's interesting to see the difference from those that know the red. From honorable soldiers, scientists, priests, and royalty, and conscious to hearing the tears of those focused on slavery. I ain't no joke.
I still make the burner smoke. I still make the cusses toast.
I ain't no
I'm out here on the grind, put my life on the line. Every day it's guilty crime, cause my pocket's broke. Either in or out, you're doing time, jail sentence, pay a fine. The shit is cutthroat. The more to play with, when you see me, don't see me. And don't say shit, and don't get it twisted, I ain't trying to promote. Elevated and I'm lifted and I'm staying afloat. And I know that I'm gifted and I'm here to invoke the higher self and the health and the wealth of the host. Pull herself on the shelf, I master my ghost, but it's landed and it's slippery and I slide on the slope. Pioneer, third eye, arm and Ryan scope. Ryan Neal, who am I? But the one they wrote, who descended from the sky and gave their quotes. I ain't trying to say I'm high, but I'm high, watch me coast. Don't even ask why, I watch the swagger and know I'm airborne fly. You think I brag and boast? I'm just mufti on the rise, standing firm on my post. Better believe, yo, I ain't no joke. No exos tonight, no hugs and kisses. Yo, I ain't no joke. Hold on. Yeah. Majority rules across the chest. Black hoodie, no vest, man, that's gotta be. I fear none, no gun, bullet bit of teeth, trigger bit of tongue. My barrel bit of brain, here comes the storm run. I'm brainstorming, y'all don't get it's okay, I'll keep going. You're so whack, hold that, like the seasons. What you can't stop, fall back. Enjoyed in the plan, so the God's back. Not the rapper who promotes crack, the rabbit on the track. The fans be the horses, blinded by status. My control have them thinking like Alice. Wondering Illuminati, this Illuminati. Doesn't matter, young guys choose a side. Much better, the videos, cold dark. Here's a sweater, uplift the spirit. Elevator, let's try this button. Circle 7, and visit a profit. Rapper, just stop it. Blood diamonds on the red carpet. The whole concept is a conflict. That's why my girl's best friend is a conscience. I'm just touching the surface, don't make my thoughts manifest science. Salute to my alliance. You must have got me wrong like churchgoers. But for my daughter, born a rapper, flamethrower. Salute.
I ain't no joke. I ain't no joke. I ain't no joke.
Peace and love, Moors. Islam. We're here again today. Canaanland Moors Sunday class. As you know, we've moved the temple. We have moved the temple. The new address there is 2530 Eglinton Avenue West, storefront. If you put storefront on the stuff. Again, 2530 Eglinton Avenue West, Toronto, Ontario Territory, postal code near, in brackets, M6M1T1. Also, all dues and donations for members of Canaanland Temple and honorary members, if you're interested in being an honorary member of the Canaanland Moors Temple because you're somewhere that doesn't have a temple or whatever like that, you know, you can connect with the Moors in the chat, find those pages, and build with your family. Honorary members, canaanlandguide@gmail.com. canaanlandguide@gmail.com. Just send an email requesting the membership form for the temple, and we'll send that out to you. Dues and donations to Canaanland Moors via email money transfer for Moors that are in this jurisdiction of Canaanland, and PayPal for anybody outside the jurisdiction. MST of A period do for nation 7 DOFORNATION 7 @gmail.com. MST of A period do for nation 7 @gmail.com. All Moors, make your dues payments through that email for email money transfer or PayPal. All dues should be going there. And donations. Because everything we do is volunteer work. So the people is who make this run. We're soldiers out here just like everybody else. So don't let these people get you caught up in people have titles. That means that they're somebody. Are you for the upliftment of falling humanity? Would prove whether you're down with this or not. Because that's all that this is about. Us finding different ways and means for us to uplift our people. And like we said, honors to the Moors who have been supporting Canaanland Moors ever since we resurrected Canaanland Moors in 2008. All the Moors from all over who, when I met them, they said they've been watching me for 5 years and 4 years and 6 years, and it's great to meet you and all that. Islam to all you Moors. Islam to all the Moors here that's been supporting from the jump. As soon as we dropped it, hey man, we're not Negro, black, colored, African, and all that. We're Moors. There was people who jumped on board back then that are still around today. So Islam to all those Moors. So we're just going to read our proclamation that Noble Drew Ali told the Moors to be read every meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must put an end to all radical agitating speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet, or to violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing your turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. That's for all those dirty Moors, 5,000 for a package, 1,000 for a package, you know what I mean? Trying to get you to join their whatever so you can pay them tithes. All the people who took this and they're not dealing with it from a humanitarian perspective, these are all these people that he's talking about. That if you lost faith in what Noble Drew Ali brought, which is uplift your people, period. That's it. Ain't nothing else to do. That's your duty as a Moorish American, M-U-U-R-M-O-O-R-M-O-R-E, doesn't matter. Your job is to make sure you impart knowledge to the ignorant. That's your only job. Everybody wants to be whatever stuff, and they even do the take out the garbage in. Talking about let's build something. Drew Ali's seen all these people back then and seen them that they were going to be here around today. That this is going to stray so far away from what its real perspective is that you might not even know that Noble Drew Ali is around if you weren't really wise. If you were really paying attention, you'd have got distracted from Noble Drew Ali and never even knew about him. So the fact that you know about Noble Drew Ali, who after you get into this, you start saying, damn, how come you never know about Noble Drew Ali? Why nobody teach us about this guy and all that? All right, now you know. Because it's the world's best kept secret, the world's best kept secret, that these Negroes in America, North, South, Central, were brought a prophet that brought them a religion, brought them their free national name and all that. And they listened to everybody else who came after him, but they never listened to him. That's hypocrisy. And law of retribution will deal with you for that. Because certain people didn't, they kept the turban and fez on and returned to the state where the prophet found them, which is going to cause confusion. So you can't be more and then you're stating it's cool to be with the black guys and do stuff with the black guys because, you know, that's who they are. They want to be black. No, that's not really how it's supposed to go. We're all Moors or we're all shadow. Either we're all Moors or either we're all shadow. This is a holy and divine movement founded by Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Noble Drew Ali. And speaking about will of Allah, don't forget will of Allah. All that hip hop you heard in the intro can all be found at willofalah.com. The other letter to be proclaimed at every meeting. I am glad to know I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people on our side of the nation that claim I was only a joke and unreal. Right? Same people are still around today. People on our side of the nation, Negro, black, colored people who think that's who they are. That claim Noble Drew Ali is a joke. They going around posing with the Circle 7 as some of the Aquarian gospel and cracking jokes. These guys are wearing Turk stuff and all that. And unreal. No, there's no such thing as Moorish Empire, and there's no such thing as Moors or sovereign. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they may take charge of the situation. The situation. The situation of these Asiatics getting some earthly salvation. The only way to fix that is declare and proclaim your nationality. There's no other way. So remember, this was 1900s. So the fact that it's 2018 right now, there's people still calling themselves crayon box. There's been a serious plan to make sure the people don't know about Noble Drew Ali, know about what he brought, and have some weird perspective of what being a Moor is, which continues their demise. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is still the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it badly. Just like all the Moors who, without question, every month their dues are paid up. No questions asked. Some Moors might even say, you know what, I'm for the upliftment of fallen humanity. And I heard Noble Drew Ali say, I need finance. So here's some finance. Moorish Science Temple of America. Because the amount of work that you Moors been putting in, the amount of work you Moors been putting in, stand up for your rights and all that stuff, things should be totally different. It shouldn't be how it is right now. So to help correct the imbalance, some people, they're going to give so much finance, it's almost like they paid dues for people who aren't even there yet. Because some people see where it is that this has to go. And it's only going to go in the direction of self-sufficiency, where we do for ourselves as Moors. We know a Moor has something, we're going to the Moor. Worst come to worst, we give it to an unconscious Moor. So at least we can put them on to that they're Moors, if we're going to support something. And why did he say I need finance and he needs it badly? Never before had he needs finance so badly. Because he has to shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. And it all comes to jealousy because of his fame and his nobility. Because of his fame and nobility. And because of his fame and nobility, now, which lets you also know the people who to stay away from. The ones exercising on title is what makes them. Title doesn't make a Moor. The only title that makes a Moor is El Bede Al or Ali. Ain't no other title. Everything else is pseudo. And when you have a broad perspective, you realize that that's what Noble Drew Ali brought. Yeah, this isn't about temples and cards and plates or whatever. This is about we're a nation. Once you're a nation, then nature will take care of you because you're a nation. It's not hard, but Noble Drew Ali, the prophet told the Moors already, our people are hard-headed, stiff-necked people, and they don't learn. So bear with them, but, honors to all you faithful Moors. That with stuff as messed up as it is, we're still here saying we're Moors, still getting information, still studying, still coming to the realization that there's supreme work to be done. And if everybody do a little bit, it'll be cause for people doing nothing to do something. If everybody did a little bit. You don't have to go nuts. Just do a little bit. If you know you're a Moor, just do a little bit to assist in uplifting our people. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works which I have performed in the past few years, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Being told, being told, being told, being told. Right? Okay. Before we get to our class topic today of Canada and colonial corporate wardship and all this stuff, we just want to put a little something out there. We want to say peace to the gods and the earths. We appreciate you for recognizing what's up.
Album. That's part of the merchandise for Nas's album. So now I'll let you soak that in for a second. Maybe we'll talk about the music first and then talk about some of that right there.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you fully...
This is interesting.
Yeah, understanding what's being seen right there.
I mean,
or do you want to talk about this
like
right now?
The sword going through the pyramid looks crazy as hell.
Well, see, this is all, a lot of that is like Masonic symbolism.
Okay.
Some will say, Moorish symbolism as well.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So there's no hating. Zero hating. Some people say that it's Masonic. And then some people would say that it's Moorish as well. Now, if I'm a dummy, if I'm a dumb Negro, and I've been hearing all these people talking BS about Moors and Masonry or whatever like that, and then I'm a hip-hop fan, and then I know about Brand Nubian, Sadat and Grand Puba and One for All and all this stuff. And then one of the founders of that is telling you that the merchandise that Nas has to promote the Nasir album, some will say that it's Masonic. And then some will say that it's Moorish. No hating.
But those two handshaking, that's a Masonic handshake.
Okay.
You know, the crescent moon and the star.
Right.
You know, that's usually something you'll usually see that crescent moon and the star turned on its back with the sword over it as an emblem of justice.
Okay.
You know, and that sword was used in Muhammad's time and was basically put there for those who went under the study, like a Masonic study. If you were to reveal any of these secrets, your head would be taken off by the sword.
No. Also remember, if you didn't catch when we corrected these black guys with their Mason stuff and they tried to cut Hakeem Bey short to make you think that the Moors taught the Europeans how to go take over the world and now have everybody in slavery. No, that's not how it goes. The Moors were the custodians of ancient Kemetic knowledge. Everybody knows Greeks, Romans, whoever else went to Egypt to go learn. So if they went to Egypt to go learn and the Moors are the custodians of ancient Egyptian culture, then where do you think Europeans are going to go learn if there's no Egypt to go to? Obviously, they're going to go to the Moors to learn. Nothing wrong with learning, but that's, again, the Negro mentality. That they don't like to read. They don't want to be like Lord Jamar and be a student of life and have studied and have read and have traveled the world and seen things to prove that, hey, you know what? Regardless of what people say, what Clarence 13X was talking about, that we're not Negro, black, colored, we're God, I think I'm going to ride with that before any of these people and whatever they bring. You don't recognize the two on the right? No, you don't recognize the two on the right. You think that there's two fingers up and then that's some stuff that, you know, is just from their school of thought? No, that's Moorish, because Moors say 5 on the left, 2 on the right. That's just what it is. Don't get mad. That's just what it is. Moorish science. Which might be masonry, because, you know, if you're talking about a handshake is masonry, then any type of mudra is masonry. Or some people would say it's Moorish, not Masonic. So we just wanted to give a shout out to Brand Nubian for not dissing the Moors, for putting Moorish in there, for saying it out of his mouth, the secret M word that nobody likes to say. We want to give thanks to him for that. Which is, again, letting the people who don't know, these people know, whether they say that they're Moors or not or whatever, yeah, that's up to them. But don't pretend like they don't know. Right? And again, this is foundation. This is not the new guys who are dissing old school hip hop and stuff like that. This is foundation. This is what we grew up on. Flip mode. Brand Nubian. Leaders of the new school. We know they know that they're Moors. If they're a nation of gods and earths and all that, we know they know about Moors. You can get them on a one-way, man, you're a Moor? Yeah, I'm a Moor. I know I'm a Moor. I might not say I'm Bay or L, but I know I'm a Moor. They'll tell you. Well, let's get to what we're here for today. Today, we're here to deal with this myth, because it is officially today Canada's birthday. We're gonna blow out some candles with the Queen today. We're gonna blow out some candles with the Queen and put some things on the record, you know, just so that we can say we gave our little honors for Canada's birthday. We're gonna celebrate. When the people crash the party and everybody knows, oh my gosh, party's over. These guys are here now. They're the party crashers. So we want to say peace to Doug Force and everybody with the Myth is Canada documentary, the film that exposed and is exposing stuff that Moore's been telling people. Right? We have one reference point, 2014, Welcome to Canada book. And then in my book, we speak about First Canadians, Canada Incorporated, slavery hidden as indenture, Dred Scott decision, Too Cold for Blacks, Our Authority, The Power of Persuasion, Canadian Commonwealth, Moore's Head, and then there's a bibliography and a discography, so you can't say I'm just talking some BS that I made up. You can go to khalifamedia.com, and you can pick up the book, Welcome to Canada. And again, this is just part of what Noble Jolly said Moore's got to do, you know, change the literature and whatever. So being that we know the fraud that's going on, you know, being that we know the fraud that's going on, figured might as well document it so the people could know. And what we have in the book is echoing the same thing that these Europeans here are finding out and exposing. Page 3. Evidence for black-skinned natives in the Americas long before the arrival of Columbus is abundant. From the distinctly Negroid features of colossal Olmec sculptured heads and the pre-Aztec obsidian bowl being upheld by a figure with unmistakable black characteristics, to the bones of Negroid persons excavated from a 2,000-year-old mound in North Wisconsin. A wealth of material exists to establish the certainty of non-white, non-Indian population living in pre-Columbian America along with these other groups, non-white or non-European and non-Indian, non what they would consider the so-called natives. In the late 1700s, France took claim to a vast area bordering the American colonies from the Great Lakes and the Ohio River Valley southward to the Gulf of Mexico through annexation. England came to realize that the easiest riches of the New World, which in reality was the Moorish Empire, were to be found in furs rather than in gold. So, to put claim to the fur country, the Hudson Bay Company was founded in 1670. Queen's War between France and Great Britain, broke out in 1702 and led to the capture of Port Royal by the English in 1710. Treaty of Paris in 1763 ended the 7 Years' War, and Britain emerged as the world's leading colonial empire after enormous book burnings and murdering of indigenous people through subjugation to claim the Moorish Empire. Her annexed possessions were Hindustan to Asia Sur, to southwest Amexem, to northwest Amexem. The British also took from France the so-called barren wasteland, misnomered Canada, rather than the prosperous West Indian sugar islands of Guadeloupe and Martinique. France chose to keep its Caribbean islands and to leave its North American colony, New France, to Britain. Loyalists and American colonists of varied ethnic backgrounds supported the British cause during the American Revolution. In 1783, many thousands of loyalists left the newly created United States. Everybody knows about the North Star. That the myth, just like people tell you the myth of the wilderness of North America, okay, the barren wasteland of Canada is a myth. Just like there were civilizations in other parts of the Americas, there were civilizations up here. And due to the subjugation of the Aboriginal and Indigenous people, you have Europeans who are now involved in their correction, because they can't go all the way. They're going to tiptoe the line because they know that they're not home here in the Americas. So they tread by exposing the fraudulent practices of people who look like them. So they become these new age abolitionists of slavery who are trying to assist the cause of the free people and the fugitive slaves. That they know the BS that's going on. They know the BS going on so much that it's amazing how come our people haven't jumped on board yet. And we're not talking about European sovereign citizen BS. We're talking about modern day abolitionists, modern day Europeans who are living in the Americas, who know what their ancient foremothers and forefathers did and continue to do right now, even to them. And they're saying, no, 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 no. We have to start really making this thing known. We're going to dress like Moors and Jews and all that stuff, and we're going to put this truth out. We're going to do whatever we can to let people know. And remember, symbols speak way more louder than words. So even though you're listening, don't forget, letters are symbols. So take notes, because symbols are more important than words. And realize that when you take notes and you do your fact checking, you'll see that these people are echoing exactly what Noble Drew Ali told these Negro black colored people to do 100 and something years ago. And everybody's coming back to the realization of what this is about. So this is, the myth is Canada.
Ease into this like a lukewarm bath. Maybe just a hot, not a hot, too hot. We're not going to scare people, but we have Doug Force here. And welcome, Doug. You're making a film called The Myth is Canada.
I am.
And
Well, we are, actually. I shouldn't say I am.
yeah. What's your role with the film?
Well, I was the one that kind of did all the research, pulled all the research together. I actually stand on the shoulders of giants when I say pulled all the research together. There was a wonderful gentleman that did a lot of the work here in Canada. He died this year, passed away in April or May this year, Eldon Warman. He had a wonderful website called DTax Canada, where I read on DTax Canada many years ago now. He had what they called the Walter Cool letter up there. And Walter Cool was a backbencher in Ottawa in the 1920s, 1930s.
Yeah.
And he wrote a letter, very famous letter, to René Lévesque in 1976, when René Lévesque was having a big thing in Quebec for the PQ. They wanted to do a big separation.
Right.
And so he wrote a letter saying, Mr. Lévesque, you can't have a divorce without first having a marriage. Canada never confederated. You're already a sovereign nation. So René, he went to Ottawa to see Pierre Elliott Trudeau, and he went into the office of Trudeau, and he threw the letter at him, and he said, read this and tell me, is it true or not? And Trudeau read the letter, and he said, yes, it's true, but you shut up and go back to Quebec. Here's 2 big suitcases full of money. Now piss off.
Is that what really happened?
Yeah.
And Trudeau knew that?
Trudeau knew it. Of course he knew. All of the premiers, all the prime ministers know.
But René Lévesque had the referendum anyway.
Well, he did the referendum, but in order to continue the myth going on that, we need to separate from Canada, the reality is that all they had to do was hold a constitutional convention, seat a de jure government, and they're done.
But why didn't they do that then?
Money and power.
Okay.
So they wanted to maintain the power structure that they had in Quebec by continuing the lie of the separation.
I see.
And then in order to tax the Quebecers so they could enlighten them or fill their own bank accounts.
And that's it. I was just mentioning I had a conversation with Nicole Lebresseur over the weekend in Montreal, and the one thing that I got out of that conversation is like, why are we paying taxes? Why aren't we getting dividends?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Well, that's because we're not a party to the contract. If you read the Constitution Act of 1982, in section, I think it was 19.1 and 19.2, it only applies to the members of the federal government and members of the provincial government.
Now, also remember that in the Constitution Act, just gonna verify that. In this so-called constitution for the jurisdiction known as Canada, the jurisdiction known as Canada. Constitution Act 1982, application of charter. Application of charter. Section 32. This charter applies to the Parliament and Government of Canada in respect of all matters within the authority of Parliament, including all matters relating to the Yukon Territory and Northwest Territories, and to the legislature and government of each province in respect of all matters within the authority of the legislature of each province. Now, just like the so-called states, all the provinces are supposed to be sovereign because they really have no body over them like that. Their establishment was based in fraud. So the sovereignty of these provinces, this is why all the provinces, if you go check, have indigenous names for them. None of them are European, even though they're making claim of this is their country. If it's your country, then why use European names? because the initial stuff was set up illegally. And again, tying back with what Doug is saying, that remember, Canada was mentioned in the Articles of Confederation. Canada is not the provinces. Canada is the whole so-called jurisdiction. So if the whole so-called jurisdiction has these entities known as provinces, and the whole so-called jurisdiction could benefit from being part of the Union, which would have been the Republic states that was established for these Europeans to be over here in peace and harmony. Because we were running them out of the world with our actions, as far as our ancient foremothers and forefathers, some of them. They had nowhere to go and they found somewhere here. When they found Canada in 1867, that wasn't a country, because it doesn't even have a constitution. And the same Trudeau who they're talking about is the one whose son is in right now. So trust that they know. I got the letter from Rene Levesque. And when you go check the story on him, you'll see that they were putting him as some guy, oh my God, we want to separate from Canada because Quebec is its own nation and we don't need you guys and all that. But reality is he knew that the stuff was built on fraud and couldn't come out and say that it's built on fraud because, you know, all these people are foreigners here. But Europeans know, Europeans that are in power know that that might be my enemy over there, but we'll unite to do some escheating and some annexation. We'll unite to gentrify some community and kick all the Asiatics out and build a condominium. They'll unite for that. And we'll never take that approach, because majority of our people are absent-minded of nationality. There's people who are so-called Moorish nationals that are going to try to convince you that there's such a thing as a Moorish Canadian because Moors live in Canada. Moors don't live in Canada. Moors can't live in Canada. Canada's not a country. The European telling you. It's not what we say. It's not what Moors are saying. We're just backing up these Europeans. And again, these aren't some sovereign citizen we want to you know, have our own plates and all that type of stuff. They're thinking way bigger than some plates and some card that says that they can be a sovereign nation. They're thinking way bigger than that. What are they thinking about? Uplifting fallen humanity, letting people know what's going on. Because your nation is useless if the people are incompetent. You might as well just be wards. You say you're a black nation, you're a ward. Real easy. You're saying a national name though? Okay, fine. You see what you're saying. The game was played already. We're already in it. Realizing that these Europeans even know. As Moors. Like, damn, we've been talking about this stuff since 2008, that this is a corporation and all this stuff. And then now, Europeans making documentaries and stuff like that, and they're coming out saying the same stuff. And then they're going to say that their production company is Nephilim Films. Not every European talking about rights is a sovereign citizen and on the BIE and all that stuff. You know, they're the ones that's black, right? A black identity extremist, black doesn't mean dark people. That's why when you go read that, it says not all Moors are even part of that. So don't get, you know, don't go nuts thinking that because it says Moors in there that, you know, they mean all Moors. No, they made it very clear. Not all.
They're the party to the contract. So they're the only ones that can actually get paid.
Wait, honey, can you look at this? Does this sound?
Hence the myth is canon.
Okay, what's going on here, Doug? Like,
well,
what's
I
happening?
asked the simple question. In 2017, we're celebrating 150 years of Confederation, are we not? It's
Yes,
all over
we
the
are.
place. They
Yeah.
had big parties this summer.
Yeah.
And they say in 1867, the British North American Act caused Canada to confederate.
Right.
In 1889, the Interpretation Act that was created in the UK said that the Dominion of Canada was a colony. So how can we have confederated in 1867 and be a colony in 1889?
Well, then we had the Statute of Westminster, right?
Correct. That ended the British North American Act. But prior to that ending, they did something very, very smart. Queen Victoria, she wanted to end the monarch of Canada, and in 1893, they did what they call the Statutes Law Revision Act, which took out the enacting clause from the British North American Act, but also more importantly, it took out Section 2 of the British North American Act, which said that there was a monarch in perpetuity through heredity. It eliminated that. So in 1901, when she passed away, the monarchy ended in Canada. So I asked the question,
Okay.
in 1982, when Pierre Elliott Trudeau went to England, what queen was he taking the Canada Act to? Because it certainly wasn't the Queen of Canada. We hadn't had one since 1901.
So, wow, so many questions. Where do we begin? So,
So we're not part of the monarchy?
No, ma'am. Haven't been since 1901.
So why do we pretend that?
So if these Europeans are talking about they're not part of the monarchy because the Statutes Revision Act voided the authority of the Queen. In Canada, having authority, voided it. So now there's no queen that has any authority here. How is it that people who call themselves Moors, that claim that they're Grand Chiefs and they're studying all that stuff, are going to try to convince you that Moors are Canadians? When these Europeans know that there's no such thing as Canada. That's a crown colony. That's not a country. This is why you can get sued for using the Canadian flag logo. Canada Corporation will sue you if you use that without permission. There's people who've been sued. Obviously, that's not a national flag if they can sue you for using the flag. Obviously, that's not your license from them if it says property of them. Because the whole fraud is making sure that you consent to being enslaved. As soon as you consent to it, now they can't be held liable because you consented. You agreed. Remember, consent. Lord Monck, first Governor General of Canada. Men being by nature all free, equal, and independent, no one can be put out of this estate and subjected to the power of another without his consent. The only way whereby anyone divests himself of his natural liberty and puts on the bonds of civil society is by agreeing with other men to join and unite into a community. Remember, and they're talking about Governor General. Now it's known that this idea of authority, this concept of authority is really an illusion. Because the people who are claiming authority are de facto. There was a Governor General out here by the name of Michelle Jean. You can look her up. And there's speeches that she made where she said straight, the Governor General is a de facto position. Now, if the Governor General, who's supposed to be the head of state, given authority by the Queen, is de facto, then obviously the sovereignty of the Queen here is de facto. That's the only way that it could be. It can't be any other way. Because once it's established on fraud, it remains fraud no matter how long it's going on for. They're talking 100 and something years this Canada fraud's been going on. Special Committee on the BNA Act, Dr. Duchesne, Beauchesne. I think the time is right for a change in the Constitution. I do not think you would need much publicity in order to draw to the attention of the people of this country that the British North America Act is inadequate. It's inadequate. It doesn't reach up to the standards that a quote-unquote country should have. Because, you know, first of all, that's just an act. Remember, they mentioned the Statute of Westminster. Provinces were made sovereign in Act 7 of this statute, free and independent. But since Canada has not acted on this by adopting a constitution, signing agreements, we know that it is the power of the act which is not why these things were done when the Statute of Westminster was enacted. Canada is a colonial possession of the British monarchy and is not obligated to the people. There can be no constitution in Canada, whether it is on the basis of the British North America Act or any other act, until the people of Canada accept it. They have not accepted it. The Parliament of Canada is acting on assumed power and authority. Parliament ratifying a treaty or agreement cannot take place as it is the Crown that signs and ratifies on behalf of the subordinate Parliament. And again, we have these Europeans who are coming to the realization and are putting this out because they're not trying to be enslaved. They already know. We're talking about Europeans here, which is why, we're doing what we have to do to try to reach our people. And the only people who are gravitating are the people who are nationals already. The people who are nationals, they know what's up. They're down 500, but because we're diverse nationalities as far as our relationship, they could only help us so far because they have their own nation stuff to deal with. But when they see that there's people who would be classified Negro, Black, colored, but we don't play that, they're very open and very revealing with regard to history and law and science and things like that, because we're proving to them that we're not the ones that are sleeping. We're the awake people. Now, there's also lots of talk of Parliament, and again, we're going back to this idea of when you go check all the names here, including Canada, all these are indigenous names. There ain't no European names out here for anywhere, unless some park or some street that they're trying to, like anywhere else, mark their territory, put a sign up, and call it their boy's name, their boy boulevard. Right? Now, they're saying even Parliament Hill is a mound that they took in their annexing and escheating of indigenous land, which majority of that was done through dummy treaties by the so-called Indians who were part of making sure that the free people and the Asiatics here are suppressed. Because the Asiatics here were, as we read in the beginning, before Columbus, ain't no white Indians, ain't no Europeans that were over here. It was dark-skinned people. So how is there dark-skinned people here? They're doing what it is that they do. And then some foreign people came unified with these dark-skinned people. Then some more foreigners came here. And slaughtered everybody and left the light-skinned ones. And then said that all the people they slaughtered, they're really the black guys. that we brought over here on a ship. And under the doctrine of discovery, we can claim this land because this land is full of infidels. And this land is full of non-Christian people who need to be baptized. And then the individuals who were the later indigenous people are the ones making all the claims right now, when it's really supposed to be the indigenous people who are the Negro, black, colored people that don't know that they're the indigenous people because they fell for the front that this is not their land over here. This is the wilderness of North America. And this is barren wasteland of Canada. So they have nothing to do with here. It looks like the game is up. And the only thing keeping this alive is the people who consent to being shadowed.
We are.
Oh, the whole idea is in 1931, when the Statutes of Westminster was put through, it ended the British North American Act, and it allowed Canada to confederate, to go to the will of the people, to turn around and hold either constitutional conventions or conventions for confederations in all the provinces, and then confederate to a federal authority. And the powers that be in Ottawa and in the UK didn't want that to happen simply because it would have eliminated their power structure. It would have taken all that they had thought they worked for over the years in putting their criminal activities together. It would have taken them all away, because once you put power back into the hands of the people, those that are in power then would have lost it. And so they continued to have the illusion and that we had confederated and that we were a constitutional monarchy, et cetera, et cetera. And if you actually go to the website of NephilimFilms.com and go to where our project is, there's a timeline on there. And we go into explaining what happened after 1931, the various iterations on the British North American Act that they called the Constitution Act, 1939, 1940, 1942, 1965, 1971, et cetera, et cetera. But they're all were just the British North American Act that was a dead document. But it was there as an overlay to pretend.
Right, so since 1867, right? Since 1867, they had this document called British North American Act. And then that same document, they changed the name of it to Constitution Act. And then they started pushing that as the constitution of the so-called country. Counterfeit constitution. Because remember, the whole concept comes from the American republics that were created for these Europeans to live in peace and tranquility in the land of milk and honey. Now let's go back again for a little bit. This is The Blacks in Canada, A History. Robin W. Winks. The Blacks in Canada, A History. Robin W. Winks. And this is from the chapter, The Canadian Canaan. People who don't think that, people don't know that up here is Canaan. And they want to pretend like when we say Canaan land Moors, that's some made up stuff. No, this stuff been around, that up here is Canaan. Been around. From time to time, teachers were sent on circuits from the Society's offices in Toronto and London, and schools were fitfully revived throughout Western Canada. Indeed, efforts continued on a small scale and under a new name, the Mission to the Colored Population in Canada, until 1883, and 9 missionaries were kept in the field, although largely in a non-Negro areas. Nonetheless, the brief role played by the Colonial Church and School Society in helping the fugitive slaves to discover their Canadian Canaan was virtually ended by 1866. So this is a renaissance when we say Canaanland here. Everyone knows the slave history. Everyone knows the slave hymns about escaping slavery and following the North Star. I thought you came from Africa. If you came from Africa on a slave ship, what are you talking about escaping slavery and going north to Canaan? Obviously, you're from here, if you know that much. Because remember, you're not allowed to read and you're not allowed to do none of that stuff. So how are they finding out about this stuff? Unless it was already in them. There's definitely a connection to the Aboriginal indigenous people who are classified today as Negro, Black, Colored, African Canadian, African American, whatever else, and this land. Until the people come to that realization that they really are home and they have the right here to form themselves into a society of Aboriginal indigenous people that have 3 national names and return to the mindset of your ancient foremothers and forefathers. You have that right to do that. And trust the law of retribution is not going to let you do BS with that freedom. You will get got if you play around. So these Europeans, realizing that time's up right now, realizing that they really can't wait anymore. They have their foot on the pedal now, trying to get this information out to their people. What are Moors doing? They want to have temples and play church with it, not uplift the people. They want to play best business of whatever and sell stuff that you can't even sell. This is birthrights. We're putting the call out to all Moors that are faithful to keep your faithfulness, to uplifting your people and giving honors to Noble Drew Ali. Because him and his program is the most neglected lesson of the Asiatics in America. And again, we've been putting it on the record. That out here, we don't play Canadian. But again, we go back and we look at the Lanray Bays case. And the quote-unquote charter not being for him, the quote-unquote charter of rights and freedom that applies to members of parliament and legislature and all the stuff that we talked about earlier, when they violate, you, example like what they did to him, he gave them nationality card, they're trying to tell him, no, you're the name on the license. That's violation of his charter rights. But in him making the demand that something be done about his charter rights being violated, because he presented his free national name and they were trying to put him under a license, the judge came out and told him that they're wrong. You can't tell him what his ID is if he gives you 2 pieces of ID. You can't make him be something that he's not. In his other case, same thing. Violating charter rights. I didn't give this guy a license. I gave him nationality card. What happened? Judge said, you guys need to go handle this behind closed doors. Because I'm not hearing this. It's not an illusion. It is real once you have a nationality and you know about your nationality and your birthrights. And then you can take the place of these Europeans who are trying to use your birthright because you don't want to use it. Remember, they're talking about going back to Europe. They're talking about, forget these people here who are saying that they're the Canadian government, and let's the people form our own government. Nobujwali did that for us already. Like, what is it that we have to do to come to the realization
that we had done what they say we had done, which was a lie?
Okay, so that existing power structure, and you mentioned criminal activities by the power structure?
Well, if it's an illegal and unlawful overlay that they've done to us, they're even I remember Harper, when he was government a few years ago, he was in an interview in Calgary, and he made claim that the federal government is a de facto government, which means it's an unlawful and illegal government. The Governor General just recently, the one before the one that's in there now, she made it very clear that she was a de facto head of state.
Nobody even really knows what
de facto means unlawful and illegal.
Wow.
It means.
What about paying taxes on your wages? We're not supposed to be doing that either.
Okay. Well, if we get into taxes and so forth, it's going to be a much longer show than what we've garnered time for here.
Right.
But yes, the simple answer to that is yes, you're absolutely correct. That
right? So even these Europeans know. Not paying taxes because they're tax exempt because of their indigenous or whatever. They know these people are a fraud. I mean, pay taxes to you guys when you're a fraud. And remember, this is about knowledge. This is about being brought to a different mindset so you can have a different perspective about how you look at things and how you look at yourself. Because guarantee, you leave it up to these leaders who are playing title games, those people wear you out. Don't get caught in the title game. Because as soon as the time is right, title people disappear. Think about all the starting a nation people. other creating a Moorish whatever or a black sovereign whatever. Where they are right now. And then because that didn't work, now everybody's getting on this Aborigine autochthonous BS. Like they're not denationalizing themselves doing that. Making claims they're chief of some tribe. You're chief of a tribe? You'd rather be a chief of a tribe than a bey of an empire. Small-minded goofs. You want to be L of an empire. You want to be Ali of a YouTube page. You're Ali of a YouTube page. And then people are taking the people serious. You're a YouTube page, Ali, and that's it. Taking other Moors' pictures, putting them up to try to say, look, Moors, we're active or whatever like that, when that's not even your picture. And remember, like we've been saying, people know what's up. People know what's up. We're the only ones in the dark. Our people. And it's very easy to see when you have eyes wide open, when you listen to this thing, you know he's talking Moorish. You know he's talking from a perspective of not being under Christendom. That's European as a beanie on. That ain't European. Just wearing that because it's cool. I doubt he's wearing that because it's cool.
Taxes would be considered illegal here.
Because it wasn't never ratified, or
But still, it's not even illegal. But why aren't we getting dividends? We live in a wealthy nation.
Because we're not a party to the contract. Once again, it circles back to the contract. The contract, the overlay that they call the Constitution Act 1982, does not apply to us.
Right? It only applies to the people who are claiming titles of this corporation. It doesn't apply to the people. Which is why in the Criminal Code of Canada, it'll tell you in Article Section 15 about de facto power. Right? And again, this is how they get the people in the jurisdiction. Right? Section 15, obedience to de facto law. No person shall be convicted of an offense in respect of an act or omission in obedience to the laws of the time being made and enforced by persons in de facto possession of sovereign power in and over the place where the act or omission occurs. Now, if these persons in de facto possession of sovereign power, remember, they're in de facto possession of sovereign power. So if these people are in de facto possession of sovereign power, then obviously when they say go to court and you go there and it's not a civil court, but it's not a criminal court, they call it traffic court. That's how they're escaping this. Because they'll tell you that traffic court is quasi. And if it's quasi, then that means criminal code doesn't apply. And you consented by having the license, which is going to make you go into that court where obedience to de facto law from the criminal code of Canada doesn't apply. They know exactly what it is that they're doing. We're trying to put our people on game so that they can realize that they're being played and that their own is helping them stay played by them avoiding the point of nationality and birthrights. And they want to be Aboriginal, Indigenous, Aborigines, and Autochtons, but not Moors.
It only applies to them. We
Them
are
being, sorry, who's them?
the right honorables, the politicians that sit in power today, and the permanent secretaries that are behind them, the permanent government that we don't vote for.
You mean the bureaucracy,
The
high-level
bureaucracy,
bureaucracy,
the high-level bureaucracy.
the deputy ministers.
Well, Russell Rogers Smith.
Okay.
Actually, I have a quote from him. If you don't
Sure.
mind, can I
do it? Yeah.
It says, "Never before have so many known so little about so much." Now, Russell Rogers Smith is a very interesting character because he was in the 1930s. In the 1930s, he was the gentleman that created the 3 clauses that Mackenzie King took to the UK that were then taken verbatim and inserted into the Statute of Westminster that allowed Canada to confederate.
Okay.
And by doing that, we had the freedom now to do just that, to go on and become a sovereign nation, which the mandarins, or the, as you call them, the bureaucrats, didn't allow that. They didn't want to lose their power base. Once again, we're just back to that.
Okay.
And so when they did create what they finally got to the point where Trudeau, created the Canada Act, took it to England, and had the Queen take it to a foreign parliament called the UK Parliament and create the Constitution Act 1982, which he then patriated to Canada, not back to Canada, but came for the first time. And part of that you don't see in the regular documentation is the British North American Act. Because the British North American Act in 1867 was never given to Canada. It was never run through Parliament. It was done as an order in council. And it was used as a letters patent for the corporation soul known as Canada.
So we have the opportunity as Canadians or people living in Canada to
right. So you see how they trap themselves? Because if they're saying there's no Canada, then if there's no Canada, if Canada's a corporation, then what are you? If you're over here and you're not more. You can't be a person in Canada because it's European. So they're on a slippery slope, them. So again, goes back to the thing about law of retribution always going to get you. Because you can't really escape when it's your turn to get it. Yeah, you might be able to divert that energy from hitting you, but that's not going to last too long. Right? Again, look at where it goes when they start talking about, well, then Canada doesn't have a constitution, then there's no country because Canada is a corporation. All right. So if Canada's a corporation, and then look at him also think about it.
So So we have the opportunity as
right? As
Canadians or people living in Canada to really create a nation that we want to create.
that's the same thing that certain people did in Palestine. They needed somewhere to live, so they went somewhere and created a nation. Remember, you could only create if you're in your own land. If you're not in your own land, that's called cheating. That's called doctrine of discovery. That's called annexation. That's called murder, theft, human trafficking. And it's not about starting a nation. It's about recognizing where you're at. You're in the Moorish nation. You create a nation. How you create a nation when you're not part of that nation? And we always use the example. Let's see them people create a yellow nation in China and see how long that lasts. The yellow nation of Chinese people. See how far that goes. I bet you it goes nowhere. Because then those people are committing treason. Because why would you want to commit and create a nation when you're already part of a nation? From the point of information, right on. From the point of, well, since this is not a nation, what do we do? Create a nation? No, that's not the right way to go. What you should be realizing is that you're ipso jure more subjects, because you're part of the empire. Umar Shabazz Bey. The Washita never drew boundaries. We are the original inhabitants of all lands from the Atlantic to the Pacific, down through Mu, South America. Wherever you find a Washita family or Washita mound site, you find part of the empire. In said North America, the area from the Alleghenies to the Rocky Mountains, from Canada down to the Gulf of Mexico, including East and West Floridas, and west to the Pecos River, encompasses the dominion of the empire Washita de Dugdemondia. So as Moors that are part of the nation, they can have a nation within a nation, which is where this concept of nation within a nation comes from. Not some Europeans and then we're part of their stuff. That's not part and parcel, isn't that? We're part and parcel because this is also our government. We felt lost power of it. Not some European thing that we're part and parcel to. We're part and parcel to our ancient foremothers and forefathers stuff that they set up. And there's mounds here.
And you know, people talk about Canada, you know, like the United States, they took themselves, like they created themselves from the British monarchy or maybe not. But we were not talking about them right now. We're talking about us.
Well, they had a constitutional convention in 1789, or 1791, where they created the Constitution.
Okay, so they did it.
They did it.
And that was from the people. And we have the opportunity now in Canada to really create a country that we want, and that could include we get dividends instead of paying taxes.
Correct. Now, the movie that we're crowdfunding on Indiegogo right now to make, not only will it contain all the evidence showing that Canada didn't confederate, Canada doesn't have a constitution, Canada is not a sovereign nation, but for the last half hour or so of the movie, we're going to explain to the people how they can actually hold a constitutional convention, seat a de jure government under their own constitution in all the provinces.
Right. Now, remember, that's Europeans. We already got that going with the more divine national movement. We already got that. We got two constitutions. We got divine constitutional bylaws. We got zodiac constitution. So we got enough constitutions. We don't need any more constitutions. What we need to do now, start uplifting fallen humanity. Even Noble Drew Ali said you are a nation. So if you are a nation, then what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for some grand whoever to make you a more? Oh, he signed my paper, then I'm a more. Drew Ali said you are a nation. You think he was only talking to people in that room only? Right? We don't need to have a constitutional convention because we already have constitutions. For people who are going to try to convince you about you need to create a constitution, we're going to start a group of Moors and we're going to have a constitution and that's going to be whatever. You don't need that. The work has already been done. All we have to do is continue the work. That's all we got to do, continue the work. These Europeans realizing that Canada's a fraud. It's not a country, not because they say so, because when they did their research, they found out information that they're not teaching people. They're not putting it out there. As far as the people who claim that this is a country, they're not putting out what you can find out when you research as the history of this. They're making people really think that this is a country when it's a crown colony. A crown colony has so much power. Yeah, because the people give it through consent. The people give it through wanting to be Negro, black, colored, and all the stuff that they shouldn't be. See what some more Europeans have to say about this.
In the BNA, the section dealing with the Governor General,
Section 12.
Section 12 exactly, was put in when Britain ruled Canada, and they ruled Canada with the aid of a Governor General. They were in Britain, we were in Canada, and the Governor General was here, and he did what the Brits told him to do, and he ruled his country. Okay? That still applies today. That's in the BNA, and it's still in the Constitution Act 1982.
So
now this section 12, it is the longest English sentence I've ever come across, and it is the hardest to understand. It'll take you half an hour to figure it out. But what it says after you've figured it out is that the Governor General of Canada has total power and authority over everything and everybody in Canada. Take my word for it.
So when they tried to dissolve Parliament and they tried to enter into that coalition where the Bloc and the NDP and the Liberals all got together, and it went to the Governor General So when the Governor General refused to accept it and told Harper to go back and continue on with his minority government, that's when that Section 12 came into play. And if that's true, then what happens is, that is evidence enough to prove that our Constitution is nothing more than a piece of paper which doesn't exist.
Yes, the Governor General had every right to tell the Prime Minister what to do. It is a total comical farce, actually, because the Governor General is appointed by the Prime Minister. A lot of people don't know this. In the old days, the Governor General, when Britain ruled this country, the Governor General was appointed by a letter patent. There have been no letters patent signed by Britain since somewhere early in the 1900s. What happened is that around 1947, the Canadian Prime Minister Mackenzie King then wanted to appoint a Governor General. But he could not get a letter patent from England because England no longer had anything to do with Canada. We were sovereign. And he solved the problem very simply. He wrote his own letter patent. You can find it on the web. I've got a copy in my house here. He wrote it saying that I appoint so-and-so to be Governor General of Canada. And he wrote it in such a way that it sounded as though the Brits had written it. Right, rather a cunning piece of paper. And that started the system then of Canadian prime ministers appointing the Governor General on their own without the Brits. And that's what happens today. So we have a Prime Minister who actually, in my opinion, is a total dictator and runs everything in Canada, appointing a Governor General under Section 12 who has total authority over Canada. What a mess. And the people have nothing to say about any of this.
So can I quickly get to 1871, this alleged BC Constitution, which you and I know is nothing more than a piece of paper, again, has no power to it. I had a chance to read through that because of my research that I've done on the massive corruption in regards to the mining issue here in British Columbia. Someone from the legislature actually emailed me a copy of this 1871 document. And when I had a chance to read through it, what it did was it sets the lieutenant governor up as every single bill that passes over in the legislature has to be handed over to him, and he rubber stamps it. And if he doesn't like anything, he can turn around, he can send it back and say, no, change the bill. So he's basically set up as the ultimate leader here in the province of British Columbia. Could you talk a little bit about Lieutenant Governor, how he's appointed, and how this ties in with?
And then keep in mind, with the Constitution Act and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, that the application of this charter is only for them. It has nothing to do with the people. It has nothing to do with the indigenous people, the free people, only the people who claim to be the title holders, the pseudo title holders in land that's not theirs, parading around like they're a government and they're a private corporation of vigilantes who pretty much got all of the indigenous people out the way to do what they wanted to do. The people themselves, who are the Aboriginal indigenous people classified as Negro, Black, colored people, have to come into their own and proclaim their free national name and religion. Now again, we're just putting it out there, right? If you go to Rihanna's Instagram page. She's promoting her makeup line or whatever. And these are the colors, or some of the colors on the color palette. More Rock and Ice, Mirage, Casablanca, Marrakush, Desert Baked, Quicksand, Sahara Stunner, Shisha Smoke, Evil Genie, Fez Up, Saffron, Come and Get It, Spice Trip, Hennessy, Hennasee, Hennessy, Nuts and Dace, Sock It to Me. Now, of all the stuff in the world that you could name the maroon makeup color, you call it Fez Up? Of all the names you can call this beigeish, light brown color, you call it Marrakush? Marrakush. That's what you're going to call the makeup stuff. Oh yeah, and don't forget wing disc tattoo under her breast and all that stuff. But you know, oh yeah, don't forget they're Illuminati, you know. They're Illuminati. But like the God said, some people say Moorish as well. Now, the Egyptian worship and all that stuff is Illuminati stuff. Cover the one eye and all that, whatever like that. Checkered floor in the videos and all that. Okay, yeah. We get it, but it could be Moorish as well. Maybe not just mere 32 frozen degrees. Maybe they're trying to get you to 32 degrees so you can start thawing out because you're 2 degrees right now. Page 29. Welcome to Canada. Government authority. The courts found that the authority of government consisted of all laws created by the 3 branches of government, executive, legislative, and administrative, as well as any rules or regulations created by quote-unquote government actors. A government actor consists of institutions for which the government has statutory authority to exercise substantial control over the day-to-day operations, policy making, as well as provide substantial funding for the institution. The Supreme Court held that the Charter equally applies to the courts as well. In Canada, the head of state can, in exceptional circumstances, protect Parliament and the people against a Prime Minister and ministers who may forget that minister means servant. Hence, divine minister, and then magistrate and subject, and then sovereign power that you gave to these people that they've been violating. Because they're really, that's why a Grand Sheik is a divine minister as well, because he's a servant if he tries to take head of these Grand Sheiks so that, you know, he can rule over you. No, it doesn't work like that. A Grand Sheik is a divine minister as well. There's no Grand Sheik that's not a divine minister. And you can't be a divine minister if you're not a Grand Sheik. Figure that one out. A minister means servant. So anybody who says that they're a Grand Sheik, which means that they're a divine minister, that means that they're your servant. That's why Canaanland Moore's Grand Sheik keeps telling all the members here, call your town meeting and we'll be there. Just call the meeting. That's why you got a chairman. Call the chairman, tell the chairman you want a town hall meeting. Chairman sets up the meeting, and then we'll be there because we're your servant. But again, you know, if we are quote unquote adepts, we're not going to let some incompetent people give us orders, because that'll be just stupid. So we teach and teach and teach and teach and teach. And when the people come into their senses, then they just do what it is they're supposed to do. Just like the mothers yesterday did what they were supposed to do. They got together, called up each other. Hey, mother, what are you doing today? Hey, mother, what are you doing today? Oh, I don't know, I'm not doing anything today. Hey, well, why don't we all just go somewhere? Let's just go take the children somewhere. Because they're mother. They don't need man to go with them to go to something, go do something. They put their stuff together and they go do what it is they're gonna do. Hey man, you wanna tag along? Come on, let's go. Once the people realize that it's their stuff, which is where we the direction that we approach from, that this is the people's. The people are the ones that have the say. All we're doing is enforcing the law that was laid down by the people.
With the Governor General,
It's exactly the same scene here in BC. In 1871, when we joined what was called the Confederation, incidentally, there has never been a confederation, but if anybody can produce a document where all the provinces have given up powers to a central government to confederate, I would like to see it. However, that's by the way. In 1871, when we joined Confederation, the British were ruling us, of course, and they ruled us through the Governor General, who was in Ottawa. Now, in each province, as they joined, they created a lieutenant governor who obeyed the Governor General, who obeyed the Queen. That was the system. In 1871, they set up a council of British Columbians, but the lieutenant governor of BC was given total authority over the province. And they wrote a statute called the BC Constitution Act, which laid out the constitutional basis for this province. It was, however, an act, and to this day, we still have a BC Constitution Act, and it is very similar in the wording still. It's the same act. It's been amended over the years, but some of the wording is identical. And it still makes the Lieutenant Governor of BC the ultimate power in BC. On the BC Refederation Party website, which is refedbc.com, on that website is a short article giving the main points of the BC Constitution Act, showing that the Lieutenant Governor is the total power. He can hire and fire anybody in BC at will. He does not need to consult with anybody, he or she. That's still the same today. When a law is passed in the legislature, when an act is passed, it does not become law until it has the Lieutenant Governor's signature on it. So when the law is passed in the legislature, it goes up the road to the Lieutenant Governor, who signs it. The Lieutenant Governor has the power to say no, as you just mentioned. And he can send it back and keep sending it back. And the elected representatives of the British Columbian people can do nothing about it. And it's also a fact that no money, no actor of the legislature spending money is permitted until it has the Lieutenant Governor's signature, an agreement, before it's spent. Before the act is passed, they must get agreement from the Lieutenant Governor. It's all in the BC Constitution Act. And that's what rules BC today. Under it, it sets up a prime minister and it gives him all the powers he wants that he has today. But
Right?
if
Straight fraud, up and down, from the West Coast to the East Coast. This is what it has been, which is again why the plea from the prophet for the people to, if you don't do anything else, declare who you are. If you don't do anything else, declare who you are. That should be something that you're considering. That should be something you're considering. Starting to study and to find out the truth about your nationality and your birthrights and applying this. Because this is all really that we have. There's nobody that's going to be floating out the clouds for us. It's not going to happen. Either we're going to do it or the BS continues. All right, page 27. Welcome to Canada. The Queen, because of Canada's federal system, is represented at both levels of government, federally by the Governor General and in each province by a federally appointed Lieutenant Governor. The monarch appoints the Governor General on the advice of the Canadian Prime Minister. All officials from the Prime Minister to a collector of taxes are under the same responsibility for any act done without legal justification as every other citizen is, reflecting the principle of the rule of law, which is also a part of Canadian constitutional law. The rule of law is an underlying constitutional principle requiring government to be conducted according to law and making all public officers answerable for their acts in the ordinary courts. A number of federal offenses under provincial statutes and municipal bylaws are not criminal offenses in the true sense, but are generally processed through the courts in the same general manner as criminal offenses. A very important development in Canadian criminal procedure is the inclusion of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms into the Constitution Act. Although the Charter does not set out any procedural rules, it does provide many of the principles that procedural rules must follow. So again, they cannot trap you without giving you a way out. They cannot corral you and expect you to stay behind the 2-foot fence. If their expectation is corral you with a 2-foot fence and they're not even thinking about you trying to escape, they got you. And they got you because, again, of consent. Because you have a right to use your common sense, but you also have a right not to. So if common sense doesn't tell you jump over the 2-foot fence to get out the jurisdiction, then you probably deserve to be their serf. The Constitution is a contract between the people and their government. You said we have a divine constitution and bylaws, right? And we have a Zodiac Constitution, right? And Zodiac Constitution was founded by a Moor, right? Yep. And Divine Constitution and Bylaws was founded by a Moor. Okay. And The Divine Constitution and Bylaws was a contract that these people who are members of the nation have a contract with their government, which is the Moorish nation, which is also them. Because the people who are their government are the ones who they elected, that they call them grand whoever. Which, remember, they're divine ministers, which is why, you know, marriage laws and stuff like that is written in the stuff. Right? Noble Jolly told the Moors, hey, you know, it says marriage laws, we obligate you. We don't marry. As soon as you hear marry, you already know that these people are trying to enslave you. So it's supposed to be obligation. Indigenous rights and freedoms must take precedent over the community with the jure due process of law. It is this which prohibits government from confiscating the primary right of life and the supportive rights of liberty, property, not the pursuit of happiness. So it's important for Moors to keep putting this word out. You know that there is, in reality, a Moorish nation. And the Moorish nation is and are the Moors that are part of it. In some documentation that you're going to find, other than something written by Moors, that's going to qualify for you, Moorish nation is yours. Oh, and there's also the 3-volume history of the Moorish Empire. That'll tell you. And the work that's being done is to wake up our people to the fact that they are not Negro, black, and colored. They are in actuality Moors, specifically Moors in America, Moorish American, Aboriginal and Indigenous, but they can't be that without being Moors. Don't fall for the separation. Don't fall for the people taking possession of your sovereign authority and then using it to rule you. Because that's a violation of divine law, nature's law, and international law. And the only way that it gets to pass, the activities that we're complaining about gets to pass because good people sat around watching bad people do stuff and did nothing about it. The time has to manifest. Time has to manifest when all the BS stops. You get out there a little emotionalism or whatever like that, and support Moors who are doing righteousness. And not just Moors who are doing righteousness, but Moors who have a track record of doing righteousness. You know, and not picking sides. That's why when we went to Chicago for the Moorish American National Government Conference, and I put it on the Moors, like I got 5, 6 nationality cards. So it's not about unity. I'm not just a member of Canaanland Temple because I'm Grand Sheik. I'm a member of other people's temple out there. Other Grand Sheiks and all that stuff, we build. Other sheiks, we build. Because we know what this is about. It's not about sides. As soon as people start playing sides, go over there, don't go over there, and all that stuff, when you're talking about righteous people, you talk about somebody dirty saying don't go to them because they're dirty. That's different than somebody saying don't go to those people because you should come to us. But why shouldn't I go over there? Well, because you don't really have any reason. Just do all your stuff with us. Don't worry. Once the people are doing righteousness, then support. Don't be supporting backwardness. Support progression, not regression. Support upliftment. Support things that are going to benefit our future generations having something that's Moorish. That they themselves could just look over their shoulder and see who their ancestors are. They don't gotta go read no 50, 100 books or whatever to find out who their ancestors are. They should be able to look back 2 generations and say, oh yeah, that's what our ancestors did. Generations from now. They'd be able to look back like, yeah, I remember when we were coming up. And Pops used to be watching YouTube. You know, now everybody got virtual reality goggles or whatever. Futuristic times, you know. When they used to watch YouTube, man, they paid some dues. So much information they put out for us to be where we're at right now in the future, with everything running smooth. Make sure you're doing something positive. And as soon as you see or find somebody else doing positive, connect with them under the covenant of the Asiatic nations and do better work. And if there's 5 people over there that they're whatever, connect with those 5 and do greater work than the 2 people could have did. Only way it's going to happen. It's going to happen no other way. And again, it's all on us. Let's not be the generation that continued the BS. Let's be the generation that ends this and starts this going in the right direction. But just keep in mind, you better have free national name and all that stuff. Don't be playing around. Well, you said let's just unite because no, it's not about unite with Negroes. It's about getting a Negro realizes a more, then let's unite. It's getting to whoever realize that they're more, then let's unite. Be a more, then claim to be whatever it is that you're claiming. Don't be stateless and claim to be something. At least have a nationality and claim to be Black people. So at least if stuff goes down, you could revert to your nationality at any time. Just like Shiva Ram Saram Pingram Dirvaza in Hindustan comes over here and he's just Shiva Ramkaram. He has that all his ID and all that stuff. When he goes back to India, he's not no Shiva Ramkaram. He's good. He's getting talked by the 27-letter name. That's how they're calling him. Why? Because they know how to live within contracts. They know that nationality is the order of the day. They know that, under this regime, under this realm of European colonization, You might have to compromise once in a while, but you're not selling out when you do that, especially if you have a nationality that you can go back to, or whatever you get from these colonials, you're taking it back to your nation to build that up. Forget building up their stuff. Oh yeah, you're gonna give me a loan for 80 million? All right, cool. We're gonna build something here. And then they take that finance and then they go make a temple in their own country. They make a temple in their country, cut it into pieces, and then ship it over here and build it. That's what they do here. They're not building here. They're taking the finance, go to where they came from, build it, break it down, and then come back over here and build it together. All the temples out here from other nations. Not talking about churches or whatever. Other people's temples, they ship their stuff in. Because they understand the power of nationality. And we're trying to get our people there. So Islam to all the Moors, peace and love to everybody. Don't forget, Canaanland Moors, Moorish Science Temple of America, Moorish Divine National Movement, Moorish Holy Temple of Science has moved. We're no longer at 2533A Eglinton Avenue West. The new location is going to be 2530 Eglinton Avenue West, 2530 Eglinton Avenue West, storefront, Toronto, Ontario Territory, M6M 1T1, M6M 1T1. Any assistance, dues, donations, you can do through email money transfer for people in Canaanland, or for honorary members or people outside of Canaanland. You can send your finance through MST of A, period, do for nation 7, DOFORNATION 7, number 7, at gmail.com. MST of A, period, do for nation 7 at gmail.com. Islam to all the Moors worldwide that are coming into the truth about their nationality and birthrights. Islam to all the family, everywhere, no matter where you're at. We're still family. Let's just rise and close out with our prayer. Five on the left, two on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe, Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, noble Jew Ali, Islam. And don't forget, in 2 weeks, Canaanland Moors annual barbecue, E.T. Seaton Park, barbecue pit, or whatever, number 1, the number 1 spot. We'll have something up to direct you. E.T. Seaton Park, 2 weeks Saturday. Islam to all the Moors. Peace and love, and we should be back up in the temple in a week and a half or 2. And again, peace and love forever to all Moors. Islam.
More lives matter. It seems like black lives don't matter. More lives matter. Shot in the back running or choked out to death on the corners. Mistake to stage before his sidearm, says the coroner. To the yellow journalist that won awards for writing facts for World Wide Press stories, always calling them black. Civil rights violated, here comes C1-7 and CIA and FBI agent brethren felons with what Big Brother once heard. Most Moors are nerds and study more than if I'm on the road, no biting curbs. Professor Mooses are fighting for survival. Making Moors martyrs won't happen, calling us captain rival. Inquisitionists, governors, and secretaries of state got stateless on their tables like ribeye steak with no care, blood dripping. They eat blacks rare. Foreigners wearing 6-point badges, pretending they're heirs to the vastness of state Muguri Balaksa. Stateless blood flow past the horse's brow, I swear it's agua. Demons thirst quench, stealing pie meals and organs. Psychiatry, death industry, to start selling black orphans and half-closed coffins, cause legs are missing, killing stateless people, cancer won't even see remission. More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter. More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter. More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter. More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter.
System, what system? Not gonna make myself no victim. Run down and kick them up, educate oneself and flip them. All of their titles or nationality strips them. Must grip reality in order to really grip them in this third dimensional illusion. Organized chaos, confusion, stealing your attention. Mental intrusion, universal laws, declaration of the ancients. I self-law and master from the rooftops to the basements. Hoop deep to the spaceship, ever since all creations. Celestial foundations, ocean floor to the ranges, to the mountain tip, to the cosmic infinite. Basically, we are way above the shit. In other words, get in tune with spirit. Take a breath and accept mental polarity, gender rhythm, correspondence, vibration, cause and effect.
More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter. More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter. More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter. More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter.
More lives matter cause I sing it no sound of. It gets defective when projected, looking ass off. Get my perspective when they direct you to a replay. All the moves that one replay until they want to cast off. Bury them, on to the next one. Enough of them are gunning it down. Use them a cast cross. Can't believe I taught you that. Can't believe I Taj Foss, Trayvon, Michael Brown died for us to find cars. The afterlife visited the class brawl. Who they really want to see with the crown on high and the garbs on free? I am free and your no business but your land or your country to seek your inalienable rights. The insatiable delight of knowing thyself and bringing all injustice to light. But the fight is your plight, make your sight for the bright. I'm the mic in the night, foresight for you to realize that, huh?
More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter. More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter. More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter. More lives matter, cause it seems like black lives don't matter.
I want to help this world win. I want to help this world win.
You gotta do your part. You can't help the world when you're playing around and race games saying you're black but you're really brown. Do it only for self. Mama Earth needs help. Grandma's church, even DTs need help. What can you do? Don't worry about me. Hey, you got life's chores cause I ain't she free. Been doing my part, building the mental art for the Aquarian age before it start. Ask Prince Ali Mel Bay and Sister Zakina. He brought him to Toronto to wake up the sleeper. If you think not, you better go ask God a grip. Who's giving to you? Hip hop shot was a lift. Bobby Hemmett came too. So did Boyd Gray. Respect and love you, though you died from AIDS. Just rent a library room. Don't cry for space. Who's gonna help the world? We can't escape the space. Most are conscious, but not cognizant. Won't stick up a pork chop with robbers at. When it's time to help the world, all I hear is can't. Many of y'all are coming back as birds and ants. Trust me, I study the Buddhists and Brahmin shaman. Help the world by activating pioneer carbon, DMT dripping like a leaky faucet. I help the world when I sleep, no need to force it. Just doing my best, even when doing my reps. Help the world sleeping or taking my steps. When I'm wearing a fez, nationals breaking their necks to witness the Renaissance, staring in a trance. I do so much and willing to do more. Don't believe me, ask the youth from Palmer Court, ask the youth from Malvern and hear what they say. Ask the youth from Rexdale or ACHA.
Yeah. My lyrical hang time's worse than the Willie Lynch curse. Cause I'm not coming down till I finish this first. Demons disperse till them fight curves. Eat dirt till my feet hurt. Ashes to ashes, soon return to the earth. Stand for better and redirect the worst. Drop some knowledge on a dime beat to quench your thirst. Thanks to sus, we remain in the game with a torch high. I ain't checking up another track, don't ask for why. It's time to feed a rapper to the fire, kick and scream. The same way a spirit does when you steal a dream. The more we want for self, the less it is for us and we. With the more I and the feeling community. The temperature rises now, the ice age melts away. Prophesized by KRS One, these are the times and days. This is the cycle that I missed cause I was too young to jump in. Now I got enough artillery to keep dumping. Fire Marshal Ho Chi Minh, let me show you something. Duck for cover, just can't stop flying, stagger like you're drunken. We got aces down here, so keep the ones flunking. Bitch slap a whack rapper like you need some pumpkin. Ho-Chi Kutcher, fucking call me Simon Butcher. Commercial rapper, decapitated envelope pusher. Rapper inquisition, feed them to the fire. Lead them to the heat and watch the flame raise higher. Picture painted, but the spirit not tainted. See us in a pheasant, fall back like it painted. Feels like we've been here from the ancient. Experienced so much challenges to build my patience.
From the ancestral ground. I'm a gremlin, I'm a ghoul, I'm a monster. Tell me your dark secrets if you want stuff. On a moral incline, I won't haunt ya. I won't spill beans, no I won't say jack. Me in the movement, man, we go way back. This ain't your everyday old school playback. Old enough to know, homie don't play that. But she will, so let's be real. Some just wanna go and come back for a refill. All they wanna do is meet $1 million and make $1 million off $1 million, stack it to the ceiling, throw it in a truck. From the ancestral ground. I'm a gremlin, I'm a ghoul, I'm a monster. Tell me your dark secrets if you want stuff. On a moral incline, I won't haunt ya. I won't spill beans, no I won't say jack. Me in the movement, man, we go way back. This ain't your everyday old school playback. Old enough to know, homie don't play that. But she will, so let's be real. Some just wanna go and come back for a refill. All they wanna do is meet $1 million and make $1 million off $1 million, stack it to the ceiling, throw it in a truck. I peel off all leaf, no trash, light it up, invoke all smoke, no gas. And whose Blues Clues said hope don't last. I'm in the heart of Almaroc, eating Japanese. My appetite's on overdrive. Past the peas, but past the please. If you don't mind, I'd rather not opine over spirits that may or may not live inside a bovine that dance along a clothesline. They will never leave us, no, they'll never go. The words of ancestors, all written down in stone. They will never leave us, no, they'll never go. The words of ancestors, in our blood and bones. They'll never leave us, they'll never go. The words of ancestors, all written down in stone. No, they'll never leave us, they will never go. The words of ancestors, in our blood and bone.
Out of stone, blood and bone. Genetically bred for war, embedded deep in my chromosomes. Demons dash in fear, phoenixes raiding our homes. Warfield marshal instills martial law. Muslims chant martial law. Mal blood in my veins. I'm still freeing the minds of those once shackled on their brains. Get the women and children to safety before I board the last train. Town ablaze. Master never got the last laugh. Simple and plain. Now your bingy soul burns bright. As a human being, I'm entitled to my birthright. Oppressors have to perish. Snipers focus your sight like Malcolm in the window. For my people, I stand and fight. Simon Phoenix here is signing out. Good night. Going back underground, plane is just gonna take flight. High status supreme is what my name reads. Joint Chiefs of Staff, and I'm a Charlie breed. Charlie breed.
They will never leave us, no, they'll never go. The words of ancestors, all written down in stone. They will never leave us, no, they'll never go. The words of ancestors, in our blood and bones.
Yo, I be the light, bring sight to the door. Lord of Morocco, lightening the torch from the island of the turtle, I declare my nationality. Lord Lucifer, Royal Kal-El, that is apocalypse now. What? The show's over. Play Shaka. I'm in appropriate persona. Moorish American for the record. Born in Atlanta, some Exum, Northwest Gates. You hear me? Ain't no misspate, but a birthright. A day and night. Ali should be studying. Nova's Raleigh, the prophet, or stay in deficit, indefinite. Circle seal 7 deal where you store spangled banner while I'll raise the real. Stand on your square, not a spear or a field, cause you might get tripped out of shape, needing pills for fill. Cause you can't swim, flows got gallons from my nation's not a challenge that I can't win. Call me cause I'm all in. Yeah, we falling. Yo.
They will never leave us, no, they'll never go. The words of ancestors, all written down in stone. They will never leave us, no, they'll never go. The words of ancestors, in our blood and bones. They'll never leave us, they'll never go. The words of ancestors, all written down in stone. No, they'll never leave us, they will never go. The words of ancestors, in our blood and bones.
Who them a step on from Far East to West, man? Matriarch age, man, out till you conceal the weapon. Hold faith and get strong, them a on streets for the next one. We engrave the masters, them a lock into the next one. Up next for the takeover, angels and the ancestors, and both them and the breaks over. Raise up and the thing local, talk up when you think sober. Put in for the dark days and the sun rays. It's vocal, my pointed the vocal.
Blood and bone, lava brimstone. Still they could never get us down. We meant to be around tanks and praises alone. This is a warrior sound, called from ancestral ground. And we will never hold back, it's just an old fact. I and I stay royal to the bone. They will never leave us, no, they'll never go. The words of ancestors, all written down in stone. They will never leave us, no, they'll never go. The words of ancestors, in our blood and bones. They'll never leave us, they'll never go. The words of ancestors, all written down in stone. No, they'll never leave us, they will never go. The words of ancestors, in our blood and bones.
Ancestral rock. Ancestral rock.
From the ancestral ground. Yeah, yeah, yeah. From the ancestral ground.
Of course, nobody still talk about that. Many of them still in this movement. You understand what I'm saying? To kill the civic side of this movement, so people can think it's just another black religious Islamic sect. You get? That was their mission, to establish that fake reality, not reality, but that fake appearance of reality, that semblance, that color to the people, which is the color that most people have of the Moorish movement now. And anyone says that's not true is a liar, because that's the concept that people have of this movement. Until we came out and started reaching out to them while everybody else was being silent, condemning us for doing it too. And we put literature out there to change their concepts so they could have something to reference to. You understand? Just like the prophet said do. Exactly what the prophet said do. People mad at us, still mad at us for it. I don't care. Because I'm not in it for them. I got babies. And they got babies. And they got babies, and the babies that's still in the womb. And I ain't having it. I'm a soldier. I came as a defender for no reason. That's why I do what I do. I'm telling you bluntly. And I ain't afraid.
Move the force of the conscious game. Superstars won't spend all those G's just a supercar. I'd rather put the funds to move the force guns. Dr. Sebi remedy in truck skids and tons. Signing bonus, give to Gabriel or Evo. Or UMIA, let more replace Negro. I'm not the face watcher or friend beggar. I'm not the type to take back what I tell ya. Tight pants and dry flows, I want a Rockefeller. Black Hawk down, a fly rapper and snap propellers. Airspace in these bars are no flow zones. I heard R&B singers are homo drones. I heard that from a gay rapper dressing so thug. G's can't pass butt cheeks, dressing so snug like a snuggle bear, showing me your underwear. Rapper Inquisition make rappers run from fear of being shown up. You already flown up, punchlines and hooks leave their face swole up. Or like the triad, if you don't pay what's owed up. Rapper Inquisition, horror flick the lips sewn up. Can't go one-on-one for IHF zone up. Using the fiat and deals, pumping their clones up. Making more rap clones like iRobot. Short circuit the whole industry of rap robots. That butts boinking, working with the ones oinking. Hip-hop's hurting IHF, the vocal ointment. Flow like a break waves and b-boy girl dancers. Spit like pain of old school graphers. Fiend for the true hip-hop scratching like a producer. MC OGs with content that you used to. Fiending for true hip-hop scratching like a producer. MC OGs with content that you used to.
They want make me life hard like pavement. Me no afraid to make my statement. Babylon one, with the mental and physical enslavement. Think right now if we all live like cavemen. How much go they dark, how much now go make it. The righteous replace them, the more side erase them. Discrimination, plague in we nation. Unity is strength, we weak with separation. Jailhouse is meant to deplete elevation. Wisdom visit under deep meditation. All we want to see under sleep medication. Herbs are the healing of the nation. Tell them police, they that stop chase man, especially since me know no phone, no place that flirt of the truth. Me know say you can't take that. See them chat, yeah, this rasta, not take back, you don't know.
Couldn't grasp half of the shit that we've been through. These clip ass niggas making comments on YouTube. TorontoRappers.com talking about you too. Generation switch, shouldn't have to show you. Big man grow, bitch, don't worry about the old school. Haven't seen a man you used to see before. Cause certain men don't want the face seen no more. Get off our dicks, your pussies is hard. Tendencies of a bitch, you should learn to be a more. And while you're hating, we'll keep repping T.O. and celebrating, cause enough soldiers soon home. We penetrating, got the locks and the codes. So do your own time, bro. We alright. Everybody on their own ground, but we still tight. It's just some miscommunication, which brothers don't fight. You need an occupation, or I forgot you tight. Shit about other men, cause you covered their life. But your business you should mind though, cause we work nights. And you ain't hard to find once darkness comes to light. And I don't care, you can take my flesh life here. I manifest, and I come back in your nightmares. And I kill you there, I've been traveling for light years. I can't die, but they won't see you horny or you won't wake up. Need to call the coroner, another wake up. Your boys will be corona, cause they slept. Reminiscing while the morning saying what the. Just yesterday we was blogging with each other. Shouldn't I? With just another brother and the rest of the camp. 2 decades straight, we've been making our stamp. Yay, I know you say you don't even know me. I make it clear I'm a Flemodon OG. Year to year made stacks off the emojis from the block to the bars. I'm known we between the rats and the stars. I play low-key looking down and it's far at the top, it's getting lonely.
Yeah. Of course, there are agents that exist, whether or not it's informed by my lips, labeled angelic or devilish, based in the view to behold against the older we get. Our perspectives and action change regardless, lines drawn between those that intend to hinder gain. Similar, not the same, see which others see, they're left to complain. The reference frame change, while still thinking life is a game. While we train, this battlefield, knowing when comic kicks is real. My mental plus my tempo must be ready to switch from hurt to heal. It's true to reveal similarities since they be following orders accordingly from trust to destiny. So mercy's unnecessary, murder honorably one's enemy. And as long as common mode exists, an opposition has to be.
Contest me now. Contest me now. Yeah, contest. I'll flatten your career, make a whack rapper. Too many whack rappers out there. This one's for y'all, yo. Simon, I'll flatten your career, make a whack rapper disappear. Grab you by your shirt back and kick your ass out of here. Bystanders run for cover, cause I'm back to reap havoc. Remember me? To kill them all and make them die tragic. Turn the opposition, cock it back and let him have it. Let him vanish like I'm a magician and raps with magic. And like poof, you're gone. With the proof I'm on. To all your non-substance rappers, if you want, respond. Give y'all a second, but I recognize you're repping some metrosexual shit, that's not the way that I'm stepping. I studied last year's testing, skimmed the cheat sheets. So test me out, kill commercial rap like dead meat. If you don't know, I'm Simon Phoenix and I deadbeats. Hung commercial rap on front page, I can't be discreet. Lyrically dumpy, leaving bodies in tall heaps. No mortal can walk like I do, now bow and kiss my feet. Call me sire, throw out your skinny jeans and retire. Back you up against the wall with hail or gunfire. Sharp talent, shred your skins and shatter your bones. Stay out of the kitchen, better yet, drop the microphone. Steadily prepping better recipes. I rap till the end, but rap won't be the death of me. At a shower party when I catch ya, I wet ya, then blow you up the crime scene. All that's left is your stretcher. So test me now. Make your fans convert. Have them wearing fatigues and burning tight pink ass shirts. Have them dashing out their flashy clothes like I'm not Tron. Mailing your pipe bombs, labeled the wannabe rap icon. Check me later, I'm gone. Thought I died, but I respond. My words are bondable, but when I speak, don't respond. I drown shallow-minded MCs in a shallow pond. Mobilize 1 million men to march like I'm Farrakhan. But I'm more like Malcolm and my brother is son Falcon. Chasing crazy ball heads out of our town after I scalp them. Bit off more than you could chew, motherfuckers. Come test me now. So test me now. So test me now. Idiot boy.
It's still IHF, still ill, hot and feds. The type to leave a body guy leaking from his head. Dirty like the naps in my head. The enemy still want me dead, but mentally I cause their bodies to combust spontaneously. I be that ghetto dentist, removing chest cavity with my psychopathic surgery. My incision won't be circular, more like linear. My network stop rising, can you still hear me clear? No more text messages, only mental mind blast to my comrades. Traders never overstand the task. Rather floss in some tight pants, some money in their hand. Big chains and rims spinning. My stone hands will leave your face smashed and ears ringing. Armageddon soon beginning, so there's no time for sinning. When I finally kill the devil, I'ma hear this angel singing. Such a beautiful song.
So Stang, turn my phones up a bit. Ain't nothing changed, it's the same. You still skylarking, most got stepdaddies like Harden. They harden, fixed in the ways, they too hardened. Some got convictions, even if they apply. They the victims, ain't getting no pardon. Almanac is in the pen, middle finger to the warden. Free your mind, even though your body barred in. This war that I'm starting, might not want no pardon.
Desperado, on my own.
If you're scared, stay far then. I'm prepared, ain't handing my card in. What they wanna call black is soot. Burnish bronze on the foot, charred in. Hydrogen molecule with the carbon. If you dare take a walk through the garden, send a stage for the role that I'm starting. I'm more in Black Knight like Martin. Soar, take flight like a Martian. I'm Thor, gladiator, Spartan. Still polite, a gentleman, charming. Friends like the Red Sea when it's parting. Kundalini energy when I'm charging. Like power and the force of a car wind. You know the type when you gotta keep your arm in. Why fight when you know saying I'll win? Never ever could compare. Let's make it clear. From day one till day done, I'm here. I never fear. You never ever could compare. Let's make it clear. Been running this from year to year. I stay prepared. Top ranking, top charting. We occupy the skids, crates, and the cartons. The highest grade of the strain that I'm sparking. Up late nights. Johnny Carson, early mornings, remember starving, engraved in my mind. Carved in the dwelling in the past, no harping. Don't be afraid or alarmed by the barking. Keep it close by a very thin margin. Shadow box with a little bit of sparring. Cage fights when you fence, then you barbed in. No cavalry, desperado charging. Never ever could compare. Let's make it clear. From day one till day done, I'm here. I never fear. You never ever could compare. Let's make it clear. Been running this from year to year. I stay prepared. Clean up your heart, I'm cool. Cleansing the fire, don't burn. Keep up the peace, don't run. Empty out when it's out to the gun. Clean up your heart, I'm cool. Cleansing the fire, don't burn. Keep up the peace, don't run. Empty out when it's out to the gun.